Hello, my name is Omar Abasad. It's Thursday, December 20th, 2018 at 1:18 p.m. in Toronto. So I was posting a video just now and it got cut off because there's interference with my camera. So the video got cut off at the point where I was talking about the three incidents with the Toronto police spanning a matter of maybe 5 years, or maybe more than that, that involved the flagging program and monitoring running in the background that made happen these three incidents. The last one almost killed me, and I'm suspecting gave me a heart attack that wasn't diagnosed as an unwitting experimentee. The first visit by Flanders and Stipp took place back in 2009. And in that interview, which I recorded and posted on the YouTube, I could be heard telling them that I was being mobbed anywhere I go. And there was a Muslim man who was harassing me in the restaurant by just staring at me. And of course, I was told that I was mentally ill and paranoid. So at that point, I was flagged, I'm suspecting, and Akhtar, one of the neighbors who lived next door to me and who was with his family, who was stalking me, timing me in and out, showing up everywhere I go. He was a source. He was an informant. And I'm suspecting he was using his network, which were Muslim people, to gather information about me, to report on me. And the incident that I told the two cops in my home, who came into my home and harassed me, knowing that I was flagged and being stalked and being monitored, I should say. I was telling them that Muslim men, well, in one incident I told them about a Muslim man sitting across from me in the restaurant, which was empty, and just staring at me. This is observation. He was observing me to collect information about me. So I'm suspecting that Akhtar had his name on the account. He had signed me out after flagging me. And he was gathering information. And was known, obviously, to the police because the police was the one who flagged me. But when one of the information gatherers called the cops and said, "Gee, I think this woman is stalking me," to cover up his stalking of me, because I was, of course, not stalking anyone. I never did stalk anyone. With a heart condition, you don't stalk people who are harassing you. So I wasn't stalking anybody. But he called the cops and said, "Gee, I have a camera in my hand, and I was stalking him because I showed up in the same place a few times," which happened to be, I'm not sure if it was a subway or a bus stop. I'm not quite sure. But it was one of the stations. And I was waiting for a bus or a train, going to work every day the same time. So at the time I was working at Women's College Hospital, so I would have taken the same route every day. So I'm suspecting that the person who called the cops and the two cops showed up at my door and harassed me inside my home was working with this Muslim person who had his name on the account. So that was a setup and a frame. Why is it that when I told the cops that I was being stalked, and I was being stalked because the person was collecting information, and there was an envelope open for me, they told me immediately that I was paranoid and delusional, when of course I wasn't. That's harassment. So I'm still having flashbacks to that as well. The second time, a few years later, two Muslim people, again, I'm suspecting, signed affidavit saying I was harassing them when, of course, they were harassing me. Again, working for the person whose name was on the account. I'm suspecting it was one of the building superintendents. And they were working together to set me up and frame me. So they continuously called the cops and made reports about me, painting me as a prostitute, somebody who has men inside in her home, which were all lies. Walking back and forth, knocking on people's doors, pulling the fire alarm. which of course was never done. In fact, these people had teenage kids, and the kids were the one who were running up and down the corridor, who were making mischief all the time. I have recordings of screaming and yelling and running up and down by their kids and their visitors. I recorded some of this, but they, I suspect, reported that I was doing it and set me up. So the cops ambushed me. They waited for me. I was out. Somebody made a call. They came to my place, waited, and pulled me out, no question. Slammed me against the wall when I asked to put my shoes on, and harassed me all the way to the hospital. I asked for water in the cruiser because I was so traumatized, no water. I asked for water in the hospital lobby, no water. 1 hour later, the nurse gave me water. So this is harassment and traumatization. When the doctor at the hospital talked to me, she was confused as to why I was there in the first place. And the cops were telling her things like she's walking back and forth, and and they were listing things that I didn't do, and I kept telling the cops I actually complained about the things that you're saying. Somebody else is doing it. But they wouldn't hear about it, and they tried to get the doctor to sign the documents to keep me in. The doctors refused. They tried to have me mentally committed. Then in 2016, I was in a mall, and at that point, I suspect Sermad and Khalid had their name on the account, working maybe in conjunction with Badr Nizar, who I took to court. Then they passed me by and called me effing a whore, and Sermad could see, and I'm Khalid's whore, or something like that. I'm not going to go into too much details, but there were two incidents. They claimed there was three. There were two incidents. Both incidents, they harassed me. They came after me. I called 911 the second time. There were no notes taken by the officers at the scene. The people went home. Of course, their faces were covered, so I didn't know who they were. They went home, called the cops, and said I harassed them. The cops came, pulled me out of my home. The charges went through in the cruiser while it was outside the building. There was no questions, although I waited for 3 hours to be questioned at the station. I was told I was going to be questioned. The charges went through before the questioning took place, so there were no questions. The charges went through in the cruiser. I was held for bail and completely traumatized. It was cold. Of course, a holding cell is just like a regular cell. And I was printed at 2 in the morning. I was taken from my home at 6 p.m. about. At 2 o'clock, I was printed after waiting in a solitary room, no walls, all closed in, to be questioned, and nothing happened. Then I was taken from one holding cell to another at 3 in the morning, and I spent about an hour in a wagon, a small wagon, a transport wagon, dark. The heat was turned on. I had my coat on. In the wagon, my arms were in cuffs behind my back, and I got an asthmatic attack. I asked for the heat to be turned off. It was not turned off. I passed out. And it was completely traumatizing. And after that episode, I was taken to another cell, waited for bail until 4 in an overcrowded room. I was standing most of the day, no sleep. And then I was put on bail, and my sister took bail and took me home at 4 in the evening. Right after that, my body started swelling up. I was just swollen, and I'm suspecting that I had a heart attack because my doctor thought it was my veins, but I think it was a heart attack. Or I had clots in my system as a direct result of that whole thing. And I could have had small heart attacks that wasn't diagnosed because my feet started swelling up after that as well. So, of course, I almost died. So, and the case, of course, was dismissed. There was no evidence to support what these two women with their faces covered that I couldn't ID said I was stalking them. Or the cops said I was stalking them, when really the incident took place in one mall in two separate grocery stores, 2 weeks or 1 week apart. There was no stalking, and yet he charged me without questioning me, knowing I was a target, knowing I was flagged, knowing that he was receiving reports about me from people who were lying, basically, because I was a target and they were supposed to be lying to cover up the experimentation that was going on, that I'm now realizing that is going on. So I'm being constantly framed and set up by the police. So the last time I almost died in the wagon, I almost died in the holding cell because I think I was passing out there as well. I could have gotten a heart attack at that point. Maybe I did. It wasn't diagnosed. And the cops showed up in the hospital on Monday this week because somebody got their account closed. Rick, I heard. And they demanded that I be picked up right away. And while I was waiting, after getting this needle in my arm, to find out if there were clots in my legs, the cops showed up and started talking about clots in the legs and clots in the lungs and walking back and forth. Apparently, somebody in the hospital, maybe one of their attendants, I'm not sure, called the cops and said I was walking back and forth in the hospital. Meanwhile, I'm waiting to find out whether there are clots in my legs. Why would I walk back and forth with my feet sore, thinking that there's a clot in my leg, but I'll be walking back and forth for no reason with a sore feet? I actually wanted to go to the bathroom right before the examination, and the bathroom was like 3 corridors down, so I had to go find it. So somebody called the cops, maybe, and said I was wandering around because I'm a target. This is what they're supposed to do. They're targeting me, deliberately lying, and the cops showed up, or somebody closed their account and asked for me to be picked up or checked out, and they showed up. Because one of the cops actually said when I went by him, he said, she's walking back and forth. The cops were harassing me in the hospital while I was under stress, waiting to find out whether there are clots in my system, and I just got a shot of a blood thinner. That could have, I could have had a heart attack, pretty much. And the cops are harassing me on top of that, just like they harassed me inside my home when they came to visit, quote unquote visit. So the reason I tweet the way I tweet is because I'm petrified of the police who's taken part in this program and most likely running the program. I am petrified of them. I think I should be afraid of the police more than I'm afraid of the people who are targeting me in the community. Talk to you another time.